I have, I have the great pleasure to welcome everyone to our session here. We're very happy to be holding these qualitative methods webinars. So in particular here, we have explorations and atlas.ti. And so with Dr. Ajay Gupta, who's connecting, who will talk about using smart codes and smart groups to generate themes in atlas.ti. And so we'll get to learn a lot more about this topic here. And my name is Ivana Radovojevic. I'm the project manager with atlas.ti. And I'm very pleased to be here to introduce this series of webinars that we're organizing with the University of British Columbia, Okanagan, and that it's sponsored by atlas.ti, the software for qualitative data analysis. And so our objective with this webinar series is to offer these insights into innovative approaches and practices with qualitative data analysis and atlas.ti. And of course, the qualitative methods more broadly. And so we really do believe that, sponsoring this initiative can help to reach people all around the world, and we want to share and democratize knowledge and help researchers by providing these sessions for free. And I also want to express my gratitude myself and on behalf of the atlas.ti team, our gratitude to Professor Emerita Karen Olson, who came to us several years ago with this brilliant idea to launch this project. And so we're very happy to be a part of this. And so a very warm welcome to everyone. And well, without any further ado, then I pass the floor to you, Dr. Ajay Gupta. So whenever you're ready. Thank you. So if you would like, maybe you can try speaking and just to confirm that you can share your screen. You should, yes, if you could just let me know. But yeah.
Yeah, so am I audible to all?
Yes, now we can hear you. Great.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening from India. Thank you, atlas.ti team. Thank you, organizers. Thank you, the University of British Columbia, all participants and all great researchers and scholars from the world. I'm going to share my screen and is my screen visible to all?
Great. Yes, we can see the PowerPoint. Yes, and then you can maximize or enter the slideshow if you would like. Mm-hmm.
Is it fine now?
Yes, and if you click the, yes, perfect. We're seeing the slides now. Great.
Great. Mm-hmm. So with your permission, may I start?
Absolutely, please. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Once again, welcome all the participants and all researchers and all the scholars around the world in this webinar of theme generation using smart codes and smart groups in atlas.ti 2022. In qualitative research, I always, whenever I deliver my talks, I always talk about, there are three things in qualitative research. One is about research methodology, second is research design, and third part is the software, the machine, the tool that we are going to talk about. And the foundation of qualitative research is research methodology and research design, whether you go with the ethnography, phenomenology, grounded theory, narrative analysis, case study methods, or any other peripheral methods like thematic analysis, thematic network analysis, discourse analysis. You take any approach of qualitative research. Unless researchers are aware about research methodology, rationale behind why they conduct qualitative research, and their research design, only using software and justifying your research using XYZ software is not going to help anybody unless we know what we use, what concept we use, and why do we use it. So I always talk about try to become expert in research methodology and research design. This is the first and foremost thing. Secondly, when we talk about atlas.ti analysis, and based on my experience, 2010 onwards, when I, during my PhD, I analyzed my entire thesis using atlas.ti 5 that time. That time I was new, but slowly I, came to update my knowledge about qualitative research, the methodology, and all the literature part of qualitative research, and absolutely about a lot of concepts that is used in atlas.ti, and what is the technical and functionality of atlas.ti. For example, uh, how to create code, even though the code is very simple word, but if you look at the code, the types of code, how to generate code, what is good code, what is not good code, then that gives you a lot of insight about the coding process. Coding is usually people perceive that coding is simply extracting the some keyword from the quotation or some piece of data. uh, is that coding? Perhaps we need to think what is coding. And during the coding process, I have gone through the one great book written by Johnny Saldana, and I'm very fan of that book. And I have read the entire process of first process of coding, second cycle of coding, and 12 type of multiple codes like attribute coding and behavioral coding, theoretical coding, and so many types of coding. So if anybody wants to refer about the coding process, then that book is perhaps one of the finest book I have gone through about the coding. Now, coming back to what coding is, and then I will move. But before that, before the coding process, I would like to give you background. I'm sure that everybody, every respondent is aware about what qualitative research is. And this is just a refinement about their knowledge about qualitative research. Is the study of culture and human behavior. And what is common in these two keywords, culture and human behavior? One thing is very common, that is human interaction, especially when we are going for the field based research. When we are collecting data from the field, we always have interaction with the people, human. All these people are, maybe they are our respondent, and maybe they are the one who can influence directly or indirectly our research. And when we talk about the human interaction, and you also know that the nature of qualitative research is, the qualitative research is context specific. So always when we talk about culture and behavior, always there are two things, human and context. So because qualitative research is context specific. And one more, characteristics of qualitative research is naturalistic inquiry. Whenever we are going to collect data, we should always collect data at the natural place of working of the respondent or natural settings, right? If anybody, usually what happens, whenever people, insist for taking audio recorded data or video recorded data from the respondent, many times you might get invitation that could you record my interview at any other different places rather than the workplaces. Then in that situation, perhaps you are going to lose lot of essence from the data. And most of the time, the researcher, unless it is absolutely unavoidable, researcher should insist for naturalistic inquiry at the workplace of the respondent. Now, coming back, and during the field, when you collect data from the field, I always, share my experience, because I did, thematic analysis using phenomenological approach, where I conducted pure qualitative research on two public sector bank in India, where I interviewed, audio recorded interview to, CEOs and executive directors, general manager, union directors, and middle managers, you know. And then I realized that whatever we read in the literature, when we actually go in the field and collect data, there are different contextual factors, there are different dynamics that researcher can face it. And I always suggest, even though literature suggests that any qualitative researcher collect two type of data from the field, especially in field-based research. One is what is said, that you can retrieve it, you can rewind it, you can replay it, and you can see anytime, you can experience it. And the most critical data is that is unsaid part. And when we talk about unsaid part, these are nothing but, all the information that is captured through your senses, right? Maybe they are the information shared during the interaction, informal interaction, during waiting, in waiting room, before the interview, after the interview, during the entire process of data collection, whatever collective experience the researcher faces, you need to document in diary, that is known as field note. Okay. And most of the time, especially, and depending on how sensitive is your research, most of the time, most of the critical element and critical information emerge from, the field note. That means many times the information shared in personal space, informal interaction, they are much more insightful information than the information shared in formal space, or maybe audio recorded data, video recorded data. Even though there is mutual consent and mutual agreement between researcher and respondent, that you are not going to reveal information without the prior permission of the respondent, or you are not going to disclose any identifying information either of the respondent or the organization. But there is psychological somehow hesitation, there is some psychological fear, and especially when you are going to record the data, maybe audio recorded or video recorded. uh, Always there is some kind of feature, some kind of, no matter how smartly you develop the rapport with the respondent, there is some kind of hesitation and fear. But the moment you close your interview, and based on my experience, I have seen, uh, as a qualitative researcher, do not immediately leave the place. If you want to collect more and more information, always try to engage into informal interaction with the respondent. And that should, yeah, and that should actually start with the, appreciative inquiry. No matter whether your respondent has given you right answer, or good answer or insightful answer, always start saying that thank you very much, and you have given very good answer, and I am thankful about your, sharing the rich knowledge and experience. And then try to engage into informal discussion. Psychologically, the respondent is aware that you are not going to record anything, but as a researcher, what you are most interested in, you are interested in about the information, not about who said, but what has been said, right? So as a researcher, your job is to capture more and more deeper information the way you want, right? And the moment you leave the place, you try to document each and everything, including facial expression, body language, and information that is shared in uh, informal interaction. And many times, the people ask question about, is it ethical to document all those information which is shared in during informal interaction? And my suggestion and my answer to this question is always yes, because the role of qualitative research is to extract information in all possible way. Because by revealing the information, by capturing the information, you are going to reveal the fact, the truth about the concept under investigation. By capturing the information, your job is not to harm either the organization or the respondent. So capturing the field note is very, very essential. Now, many times what happens, and I also faced the challenge about transcribing the audio recorded data. During my data collection, all my 23 interviews were audio recorded. And the duration was 43 minutes maximum, and 18 minutes minimum. And I experienced that, transcription takes, consumes a lot of your time. Now, again, if you go with the literature, many times, the literature talks about verbatim transcription. So, and I have seen also through literature that when, based on delimitation of study, when you do not have enough time and it is not possible to transcribe your data, always try to uh, you know uh, read your data, audio recorded data or video recorded data, and try to highlight the clippings of those important information. That means just like in textual data, whenever you find the related segment which is very relevant and giving answer to your research question, similarly in audio recorded data or video recorded data, you try to make quotation of those clippings, audio recorded and video recorded clippings, and then make transcription of those clippings and preserve it on your computer, and then make analysis out of it. Because whenever you are going to present your data, your examiner and your research guide will simply ask about, can you play your audio recorded data or video recorded data to just match whatever you have written in the transcription is right or not. You don't need to write the summary of what has been, what you feel or what you perceive it. You have to write verbatim about the important information. Now, many times what happens when you collect your data, since this is an open-ended question and open-ended responses, many times during interview, you get lot of confidential information. For example, a respondent might disclose some name of the organization, name of the respondent, his name itself. Now the question is, if you are looking for the verbatim transcription, how you are going to address such issues? For example, by by writing exactly the name of the organization or name of the respondent. In that case, always researcher need to put some disguised name. You can put some different name and put asterisk marks that this name or this information has been disguised just to maintain the confidentiality of the data. So these are some of the preparation during the data collection and field note. Now coming back to, once you have collected your data, the next process start with the atlas.ti. Once you have organized all your data on your computer in one folder, and imagining that you are going to analyze textual data. So whenever you have collected data, textual data, imagining that you have collected data from 10 respondents. Now we always assume, and it is also expected, that every transcription you should have field note. So whenever you write on the piece of paper on a diary, always make it a digital form. Always make a transcription out of it. So for example, if 10 interviews, so 10 field note, and you should write the field note by field note number 1, field note number 2, field note number, just like interview is arranged 1 to 10, field note has to be arranged accordingly, because that will give you lot of advantage and lot of space to analyze and put your field experience while analyzing your data. Now, as I mentioned, that first and foremost thing in qualitative data analysis, when you open your atlas.ti interface, always try to, first and foremost thing is to import all your data, right? By using the add function in file, in home tab, you can take all your data, maybe in the rich text format, maybe in the Word format, maybe in the PDF format. So all three version is accepted. If you have any image or pictures, you can also take it. Okay. Now, once you have exported or imported the document in atlas.ti, the next part is to open your memo and write your research question. What is your research question? And then once you have written down your research question, maybe one research question, two research question, and once you have completed your research question, now your job is to start reading, start opening the transcription, and start reading line by line, word by word, by paying full attention to the data. Now the question comes, what do you code, and what is good code and what is not good code, and what drives code? My simple explanation and answer to this question is, any information, any piece of information which directly or indirectly addresses to your research question is a quotation. You have to highlight the entire segment, right? And then once you highlight the entire segment, the same useful piece of information you are going for coding process, right? So the question is, what is code? What is good code? The code which is addressing your research question, which is giving answer to your research question directly or indirectly, is the good code. Code is not only about the meaningful information that doesn't address your research question, but code is the one meaningful information and written in the form of fractured information, which is directly or indirectly addressing your research question, right? Now, when we are talking about coding process, and of course there are multiple types of coding process. While coding, initial coding, we always start with, when it is field based data, we always use because our data is field based, we always use inductive coding. That means your coding is grounded in the data. You do not have any preconceived code in your mind that you are going to match what is there in your mind, but you are going to read the transcription and whatever so always you try to carry the lens of research question. Whenever you are going to read, always take the the micro lens view, research question lens view about the article. And then whenever you find these line makes sense to me because these are addressing my research question, always find that these are the important piece of information, and these becomes my quotation. And once you highlight those quotations, it's very simple. It's just like reading a storybook. If anybody is interested in reading the storybook by pen or pencil, then wherever you find any line which is interesting or which hooks your attention, and when you highlight, that becomes, in a technical word of atlas.ti, your quotation. And when you use your brain to write something useful piece of information in the margin area, maybe left or right, that becomes your code. Exactly same thing in the coding process any researcher follows. Now, when we are dealing with the primary data, field-based data, usually researcher conduct inductive approach, inductive coding, where the coding is coming from the data itself. When we are going with the quantitative research, or maybe based on the existing knowledge, existing theory, we are driven by deductive coding, where the variables are already known to you, and you are going to find out information from the important piece of segment from existing variables. So this is how we do it. One of the important thing while coding is to especially when in the particular passage you find multiple information. Maybe in the particular highlighted passage you can find one information, you can find multiple codes in one piece of information. One of the good practices based on my understanding is to, while coding multiple coding at the same time for the same segment of data, always try to make connection between the codes, how two codes are connected, whether they are having association or transitive relations, intransitive relations, how they are connected. For example, if I am going to write a code for the piece that high motivation leads to high performance, and management is very responsible to ensure that employees are motivated. So I find that there is a causal relationship between motivation and performance. So while giving the two codes, one is high motivation and high performance, I can make relationship between performance and motivation, how they are connected, because that is one of the best practice. Why? Because later stage it will be difficult for researcher to find out which code is generated by which piece of segment and how two codes can be connected. So it's always good practice during the initial coding, when researcher is attentive to make connection among the code that is going to provide a richer analysis at the later stage. Okay. Now, this is the screenshot of atlas.ti 22. When we are going to open your document, left hand side you can see a lot of documents which are actually arranged by D1, D1, D2, D3, D4 kind of things. And when we open our documents, there are two ways we can code our data. Manual coding. One is about right clicking on the highlighted segment, and then the flag will appear, and based on flag we can start coding, open coding or inductive coding. Or maybe directly we can go to apply code, and then also the same flag will appear, and we can start writing the coding. One more best practice about the coding process is about in-vivo coding, because many times many words or many responses are context specific, because the moment you are going to give code name to that context specific words, then perhaps as a researcher you may not capture the whole essence of it. So always I suggest researcher to highlight the entire piece of segment which is context specific in vivo coding, because that will give you a lot of essence to find the richer meaning of the responses. Okay. And when you code, right hand side all your code will appear. Okay. Now coming back to one literature, because many times when researcher code their data, many times there are a lot of question, and there is a lot of debate, lot of discussion, and a lot of also uncertainty about the particular research, how many codes a researcher should have, whether they should be driven by specific number of code or some kind of some framework about the code. And I have gone through some literature about the coding process. For example, Johnny Saldana has mentioned in his book that there are 50 to 300 codes a researcher should generate. Creswell has mentioned about 30 to 50 codes which can be arranged into 20 code groups, and then 5 to 7 themes. Susan Fries has recommended about 80 to 100 codes which can be divided into 20 categories or maybe code groups, and 5 to 7 major themes. In case of my research, when I conducted in atlas.ti, I had of course I did not have much idea about the limitation of this code, but I had 1131 codes, right? And out of 1131 codes, I categorize them into 67 code groups, right? And from 67 code groups, I had 7 themes of my research. So what is common in all the this number of codes and themes is, always in qualitative research, your theme should be less than 10. Preferably, if it is 5 to 7, it gives you a lot of clarity in terms of giving a recommendation to maybe the management, maybe the policy maker, maybe regulators, or maybe organization, right? So in any case, whether you are going with the grounded theory approach, ethnography, phenomenology, or narrative analysis, if your themes in any research across any discipline is less than 10, that means that is more focused themes, and any strategy maker or any management or any policy maker, it will be easy for him or her to apply. Okay. But as far as based on the literature, there is no hard and fast rule how many codes researchers should have. My intuition and my understanding about the number of codage, it is driven by the number of information emerging from your data. If your data is very big, if you have collected data from maybe 50 people or maybe 100 people, and if you are going with the grounded theory approach, you might have numerous number of codes. But as long as you code, because later on what happens, it becomes very difficult to manage the code. So one of the good practice is to prefix your code with the some kind of terminology, so that as a researcher you can understand when you are talking about the code, whether it is talking about the specific attributes or specific characteristics or specific phenomena. Make a habit of making prefix or suffix about the code, so that later stage you can club all those similar characteristics code or homogeneous code, and it will be easy for any researcher to make connections and relations, categorize them, group them, and also make smart code out of it. Okay. Now, code category. The next process of code category is to as long as we can make semantic domains of the code. That means if you can make code and subcode, that will be much easier for us to understand the concept and what are the different connections of concepts which are actually connected with the particular concept. So it's always important, if the researcher has similar code, they should always have some kind of association, whether they have causal relationship, they are part of it, they have association, right? And atlas.ti 22 or any version, atlas.ti 22 has a lot of advanced feature about, if you drag one code to another code and leave it there, it will show you a lot of relationship. Okay. And you can find out the suitable and appropriate relationship, and accordingly you can categorize your existing code. Okay. And then again, from categories, next process, as a researcher you can make code groups, either from the existing code or from the category of codes. Okay. Now, code grouping is simply about bucketing the similar code which are having the similar attributes or homogeneous attribute to one of the container, right? So maybe if you have imagining that if you have 50 codes or 40 codes, and if you find that some pattern are emerging and there are some similar code, related code, then you can group them and you can make them into particular code group by giving the broader thematic code group name, so that it can accommodate all the related codes which are sharing the similar characteristics and similar meaning out of it. Okay. Now this is the very interesting and very important to and this is also the main theme of this webinar, about how researcher can generate smart codes and smart groups. And smart codes are the and smart groups, and if you try to simplify the meaning of smart codes, means they are created from the code. So multiple codes, if you can use maybe the Boolean operator or maybe the proximity operator. If you talk about atlas.ti 22, it doesn't have any semantic operator. It has only set operator and proximity operator. But if you go to prior version like atlas.ti 8 and 9, they have three operators: set operator, semantic operator, and proximity operators, right? So in a smart code, what you are going to do using all these operators, maybe you can club related 2 or 3 codes using specific operators. In the next screen, I will show you how I have created the smart code. Uh, so you can use set operator is also known as Boolean operators. Set operators you can use to add multiple codes, 2 codes, more than 2 codes. Okay. And when you are going to connect 2 or more code, then definitely each code has different concept altogether. That means you are going to make smart code having the multiple concept. Maybe those concepts are interrelated, are connected, right? They are more thematic in nature, because code is nothing but a concept, that knowledge, the information that is emerging from the responsive. So imagining that if there are 5 codes, then that means you have 5 concept or 5 information. So when you are going to use smart code, you are connecting all these 5 codes, making some relationship. because they are somewhere connected. Either you use proximity operator or you use uh, your set operators. And once you create your smart code, uh, any changes in the code is automatically going to have effect on smart code. Okay, and by using smart code, uh, and by clicking on the smart code, you can directly generate all textual report. You can also create network of the smart code. Okay, and and also it depends on the size of your data. Maybe if the size of data is not very high, so a researcher can end up in developing smart code as a theme. If the data is very big, then researcher also think to create, you know, uh, smart groups by connecting the groups. For example, this is the example of creating smart code. And in this screen, you will find multiple sub screens. For example, uh, you can see here in the code manager, I have created a smart code, and this smart code has different symbols altogether, right? uh, for example, you can see the theory development, which has 4 smart code, right? That means this is a group of smart code, and this smart code appears like good government step to protect people should follow. And this project is about, there was uh, public curfew or lockdown during the pandemic in India. So I collected data from people, what is their perception about lockdown and public curfew. So based on that, these are the smart code. So under theory development, you can see that 4 smart code, which and using report function, you can see on the extreme left hand side, everything is under theory development 95 quotation. So all the quotation connected with smart code will be generated in the textual form. By using the network, you can see in the right hand side, in under theory development, you can find 4 smart code which are actually appearing. Okay, and by using the query tool, you can generate also the smart code. You usually you can generate smart code either in using in the code manager, right, or using query tool. But option of creating smart code and smart group is much bigger in query tool, because you find all the operators. But when you are going to generate your smart code and smart groups in code manager, you have limited option. The limited option is only or any. Either you can make these 2 functions, right? Now coming back to, and this is the network presentation of this smart code. Okay, you can see here uh, these are actually discriminatory HR practice and an unfair promotion process. This is uh, you know uh, group code group which actually consists of 2 code: discriminatory HR practices, unfair promotion processes, right? And connected with those groups, there are multiple codes. For example, management practices, favor based promotion, management practices, late setting practices. So this is how I have given this prefixes, management practices. And under these management practices, there are different concepts emerging. And on the top, you will find quotations, right? And this quotation, uh, you can find the connections. They justify each other. Okay. So this is how you can make sense by while presenting your data in network form. Now coming back to smart groups, as I said, that smart group is created by combining 2 or more code groups using operators in query tool. So you have to open analyze section, then query tool, and you have to select code by using operators, maybe semantic maybe Boolean operators, or maybe proximity operator, and then accordingly you can save them. And accordingly, if you want to generate report, textual report later on, or any kind of report, whether textual report or Excel report, you can create it. Okay. Now this is how I have created, smart group, as well as uh, you can see here left hand side in the code manager, code from survey. Left hand side, you will find data, right? And at the same time, whenever you are going to, and since this data is about the survey data that I have collected using Google form. So while using on the survey data, and when you import your data, right, using import export function in the survey data, atlas.ti will always ask about your preferences, that which data you want to include and which data you want to ignore. So you have to select the appropriate option, and accordingly, atlas.ti will import all the attributes of survey data. If you go with the prior version in atlas.ti 8 and 9, you need to make some changes in Excel sheet by putting some asterisks, some symbols before the research question, or maybe on some information. Uh, Based on those, symbols, atlas.ti ignore some information and accept some of the information. But in atlas.ti 22, you don't need to modify in Excel sheet. You can import your Excel sheet, and it will ask you which information you want to ignore, right, and which information you want to keep, and accordingly you can decide. And if you click import, all the information will be imported. Now this is one presentation of uh, you know you can see left hand side management practices, and this is how this has been created. The smart code management practices: mediocre promoted within responses 3, awareness about top management. That means uh, by using two codes based on code coefficient, you can create smart code, right? And then you can store them, and based on those smart code, you can generate the report, right? And while selecting the important piece of segment, researchers should also write their comment if they have any, along with the field note. They should also write their comment, what is their understanding about the important highlighted segment. For example, here I have written and the lower part of this quotation my comment. Okay, so always there is a good practice if researcher can write their comment, their experience about the selected data, that will be much better. Okay, and this is how we can use all these operators. For example, we can see this proximity operator. Okay, and in the query tool. Okay, and using all these operators, proximity operator, we can make code groups or smart code. Okay, and then store them. Okay, this is how it appears. Then this is again the use of set operators, and this is actually the atlas.ti 9, where you can see on the top set operators, semantic operators, and proximity operators. But when you open atlas.ti 22, then perhaps the semantic operator is it has been removed. Okay, so this is favoring transfer and favoring promotion. If I'm using this and operator, that means it is going to extract what is common between these two code. That means common quotation that has been coded by these two code will appear, right? When I click and, okay, and will take the common, but when I use or is going to collect all the quotation that have been coded by both the code. Okay, when I use one of, separately each quotation will be counted, but not the overlapping and embedded quotation will be counted. Okay, and this is how it appears. Now the next question is about what is theme. We always talk about, of course, the basis of theme is simple code, and it's like a pyramidal shape. At the bottom, you have maximum number of codes. From those codes, based on nature, based on relations, based on homogeneity, you try to categorize them into different code category. Then you try to make code groups of those categorized code, and from those code groups you can make smart groups, or from category you can make smart codes. And also from category and code you can make smart codes. So depending on how big is your data, how much information are emerging from your data, you can keep on making, whether it is you need smart code or smart group. So what is theme? Basically, there is always common question about what is theme. Okay. And I always say that in qualitative research, your responses is purely based on what is emerging as a pattern. Just like in quantitative research, we try to derive information or outcome based on some value, maybe p value, or maybe frequencies, or maybe statistical analysis. But in qualitative research, informations emerge based on the pattern, right? And that pattern is calculated based on code to code co-occurrence. If the data is usually high, then we try to connect code to code relations, and based on code coefficient, which is usually between 0 to 1, excluding 0 and 1, and value which is near to 1 is the significant value, and far away from 0 is not significant value. Based on that, we try to find out which theme is emerging, and based on its strength, we try to find out which code is having more strength than other themes. So basically, what is theme? Theme is a patterned information emerging from the response stage, as along with researchers' field experience. So in field-based research, always this is a combination of memos and selected quotation, which are actually addressing the research question under investigation, and that is what we talk about the theme. So there are two justification of any theme in any qualitative research, whether we go with the grounded theory approach, we go with the thematic analysis, we go with ethnography, or any. When you derive the theme, it is justified by the cluster of selected quotations, selected responses, selected piece of information, and also researcher field experience, how they are going to support it. Okay. And this is and themes also help you to create theoretical and conceptual model. And once you derive theme, and if you want to conduct quantitative research or mixed method approach, from those theme you try to develop your hypothesis, taking variables which are, because themes are nothing but variables which are emerging from your qualitative research. And in qualitative research, we always try to understand what is emerging, and no one can generalize the research, because many times people ask question about, can you generalize this research? And I always say, fundamentally this question is a wrong question, because nature of qualitative research is not to generalize, but to understand. And if you want to generalize, make theme as a hypothesis, develop questionnaire, and spread through larger sample size, collect a larger responses, and based on statistical analysis, you can find out how far, how rich, how deep, and how wide the themes are connecting with the quantitative findings, and then you can generalize your findings. But only output and outcomes of qualitative research, if you want to generalize, perhaps no, because in qualitative research you try to understand the process, not to generalize. Okay. The next is about this is one way to present the thematic presentation about code group. For example, left hand side you will find management encourage net sitting and no accountability. These two code groups have been connected, and all the code connected with these code groups are represented and showing how they are associated. For example, you can find out each part of association, and also, the right hand side, the quotation connected with it. This is one way of presenting your data to your audiences. uh, this is the code to code relationship, code to code code co-occurrence table. And right hand side, if you see, at the bottom you will find the Sankey diagram. Sankey diagram actually shows the, how information flow is connected with the research question. And in this, on the top, on the row, you will find out RQ1 to RQ7. That means I had 7 research question, descriptive question, and I collected data from 195 respondent. And based on using the word cloud, and using the frequency of word used in the word cloud, taking the clue, I coded my data. And after coding the data and based on code to code relation, and in the bracket you will find this C value, for example 0.26, and it is significant value compared to other values, 0.23, right? So based on this data you can generate Excel report. And based on C value, you can arrange ascending order or descending order, and you can try to find out how these two codes are connected and what are the different comments. And based on those comments you can make summary out of it. But here I can see how they are, and left hand sides are nothing but the emerging themes. For example, engaging at home, the question was about how people spend their time during the lockdown. So engaging at home was the first theme that emerged, which has a C value of 0.26. Accordingly, RQ7, right? RQ7 has different question. So this is how you can interpret, and you can generate your textual report, Excel report, and summarize your data based on the C value. Accordingly, you can also make code document analysis, where you will try to find out the pattern emerging. Maybe you might be interested to find out under this engaging at home, follow social distancing, all these themes, how they are distributed across different variables, maybe gender wise, maybe region wise, maybe experience wise, and then you can find out the pattern. Okay, now this is how I have seen the research question number 1, along with a lot of on the row you will find a lot of themes and their associated C values. And at the bottom you will find the Sankey diagram. Okay, and right hand side you will find out uh, this network, how it appears. Okay, uh, this is one way of creating your maybe smart code using code co-occurrence, right? So I have used 2 operators here, or and co-occurs, right? That means if you want to interpret this question, all this code like good, faculty and teacher, class and classmate, students, all these codes uh, have co-occurrence with the question. Okay, so that is how you can see the 2 operators I have used to generate. And by saving this report, I can generate a smart code or maybe the smart group under the query tool. Okay, and this is one way of presenting. And at the bottom you will find the memo. When you are going to present your data using network, always try to connect your memo to it, so that it will give a lot of authenticity of your understanding and about your field experience. Okay, and this is the, again, this is how we can create it. Okay, this is the framework I always suggest my scholars to follow in the qualitative research. And here I have just given the conceptual framework. For example, if any researcher is starting with a 2 research objective, so 2 research objective, and there are 2 research question under there are 2 under each research question there are 5 research questions, so there are 10 questions and 10 respondents. So if there are 10 questions, then there will be 100 responses. And from 100 responses, I assume that not all responses are meaningful and relevant, assuming that if there are only 50 relevant responses. And during the interview process, there are many surprising moments. Maybe they are related with unhappiness, comfort, excitement, which researcher is supposed to write in the field note. So we have developed 20 field note. Okay, and from 50 relevant segment, assuming that you make 100 quotes. So from 100 quotes, you are going to categorize into 10 groups, 20 memo into 5 memo groups. And then based on that, you can connect 5 to 7 themes that has to be supported by the relevant themes, relevant quotations, and relevant memo. So this is just a framework to understand, visualize how any researcher across any method can use it. Now coming back to the presentation of how in one framework, one network, you can see smart code, a code group, and smart group as well. Left hand side you will find I have just given the code from A to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and this code have been categorized, and I have written the code A. For example, code A, code category, code B, code category, and these code categories are also associated with code group, right? And again, by using the code group, I have created a smart group, and also by using the code and code category, I have also used the smart codes. So this is how you can conceptualize and you can make your data much easier by using this framework. Coming back to grounded methodology, grounded research methodology, where we need multiple steps of data collection. So usually in a grounded theory approach, um, when you collect data in the first round, you try to analyze data and try to find out what categories are emerging. And then next, when you are going to collect data with the different audience, different respondent, so you collect data from the emerged category. As long as you keep on repeating the process, as long as you are getting new information. The moment you find no new information is coming, that time you can stop collecting the data, and you can analyze across all the steps of data collection what themes is emerging, and based on the strength of those themes, you can develop theory, develop concept, and you can say that this is what emerging out of grounded theory. Just for the sake of presentation, I have just shown how it can be represented in the atlas.ti in the next process. On the top you can find out the round of data collection. For example, you can see fifth round of data collection, first to fifth I have written. So I have collected data 5 round of data collection, and left hand side that you see this 4 concept or 4 themes emerging. Good government step to protect people, people should follow social distancing, responsible step by government. So along all these steps of data collection in grounded theory approach, all these 4s were emerging, and based on that, you can normalize the data so that your analysis becomes easier and authentic one. And based on the percentage distribution, you can find out the strength of your data, strength of concept emerging from the grounded theory. Okay, and again, this is one representation of it, and you can generate report textual form, network form, Excel form, and this is just a representation of your data. And then with this I stop my presentation, and I most welcome for any question you have about whatever discussion I have given to you about the theme generation, smart code, and smart groups, or whatsoever. This full floor is open for you. Or
thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, for a really great talk. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I've asked atlas.ti to please leave the chat box open for a while so that people can simply type in their questions. And we'll copy those out and send them to Dr. Gupta so that he can put the answer in his notes, which will be available from both atlas.ti and IQRT in our respective archives. It looks, maybe we will have time for one question. The question is smart code another name for category?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Because in category, we try to build code to code relations, how they are associated. Maybe we can find out whether they are having transitive relations or intransitive relations. But when we talk about creating smart code, we are going to use more relationship. For example, in set operators, you will find four operators. In proximity, you will find multiple operators. So code category is not the smart code. And whenever you are going to make smart code, and when you are going to change either the code name or code description, smart code is dynamic and automatically get changed. But in case of code category, it doesn't get automatically changed. Okay. Smart code hold much bigger information, much bigger concept than code category. So code category can be clubbed and made into smart code, not vice versa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think I'll hand this back over to atlas.ti. Thank you everyone for joining the session, and watch for the MP4 file and the PowerPoint slides to follow soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you, Karen. Yes, and thank you so much, Dr. Ajay. So we can take, I suppose, yes, a few more minutes, because I just see a few more questions, if it's okay with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And great, thank you. Since it's all being recorded, and then that way everyone can see it in the recording afterwards. But I can see, and just to continue with the next question here. Another one about, someone is asking, if I understand correctly, code groups can be used structurally to physically group similar codes or as initial themes, while smart codes integrate on a higher level of integration and more abstract grouping. I'm going to copy this in the chat.
Okay. Now I got your question.
Mm-hmm.
Grouping is simply about representing the particular. They are not making any connections, right?
Mm-hmm.
Grouping is just code group is just a container. You are just taking some codes and putting into the code group. It just represents that this code group has so many codes. They do not show any relationship among the code, right? But when you make smart code or even smart group, they are connected with lot of relations operators, and they show that how two codes have relationship. Whereas when you have 5 codes, and if you are just simply drag and drop into smart code, it doesn't show anything. But when you're going to create a smart code, and of course it is on much bigger level, that how concepts are interrelated, how there are relationship among the different concepts. So if you want to understand any phenomena under the investigation, smart code gives you a broader picture. Maybe it can give you psychological background, sociological dimensions, but whereas in code groups, perhaps it is limited by all those things. So code group is not the smart code and smart groups.
Great, great. Wonderful, thank you. Yes, I do agree. And then I suppose that's just one more question.
Absolutely, go ahead.
That we have here in the chat. So do you have any suggestions for qualitative textbooks for someone starting out in qualitative research? So any books to recommend?
There is no one book, there are multiple books. But I would always suggest that my participants should read any book which talks about research design. For example, the book by Ellen Bryan and also the Creswell book. Both books are very, very useful books, and usually I follow those books. So especially 5 Inquiry Methods by John Creswell, that's very good book. And of course for coding, Johnny Saldana book. And also for atlas.ti analysis, Susan Fries is the one who is pioneer in qualitative research analysis. So
Yeah.
these are the books. If people are interested about case study method, then Professor Robert Yin is the one who is actually mastering case study method. So I always try to recommend people that read all the great people in the particular field, because that will give you a lot of exposure to understanding qualitative research. But finally, I always suggest people to read literature on research methodology and research design, because that is the backbone of qualitative research, because that is something very, very fundamental and very, very inherent to data analysis across any discipline, across any methods, whether you use tool or do not use tool.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, yes, I agree. I also very much like those books that you mentioned as well, in Creswell and Saldana, and of course Suzanne Fies. It's great. Well, thank you so much then for your time. And I see we have some nice things in the chat as well. And so with that, I want to thank you for your very insightful presentation, Dr. Ajay Gupta. It was very, very interesting. And I hope everyone got some new ideas for their own research projects. And then I finally just wanted to share a few words with the audience, in case you're ever interested in learning more about atlas.ti, that we have a huge variety of free webinars on qualitative analysis and literature reviews in the atlas.ti platforms. So feel free to explore our website. And for everyone participating here today, you all, of course, deserve a special discount coupon for the courses and licenses. So feel free to send an email to training@atlas.ti.com. I'll put that in the chat too. And just let us know you attended, and we'd be happy to send you any kinds of discounts. And the same goes for the cost of the package. You can also see that on our website, but feel free to send us an email and we'd be happy to talk more specifically about it. But thank you once again to Professor Karen Olsen for the session, and to Dr. Ajay Gupta. It was a great opportunity to learn from you. And I thank all of our dear participants for joining us today.
Thank you very much, each and everyone. Thank you, atlas.ti team, for organizing such a wonderful webinar. Thank you, University of British Columbia. Thank you, organizer. Most importantly, thank you all the participants for raising wonderful question and listening to my discussion patiently. I also learned so many things from your question, and I also enjoyed the session thoroughly, and look forward to meet you again in some wonderful session. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, and goodbye for today. Until next time.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.